What is a working day in the life of a helicopter pilot? Hello, welcome to the View Ahead 4K podcast, the new podcast coming to you from Spotify, Apple, and on the View Ahead 4K YouTube channel. You can also find it on revelatoralf.com, the website. But in terms of a working day for a helicopter pilot, now obviously it really depends what your role is, what your activity is as a helicopter pilot. So most people would say, "Oh, well, the day in the life of a pilot is that you go to work and you get the weather. You find out what the weather is for that day. You'll find out if there's any kind of restrictions in the airspace, any kind of notable things that could affect your flight, or that you're not allowed to fly in certain areas. We would call these NOTAMs, notice to airmen. Depends in the different countries. Might have to source that information, weather and NOTAM information from different sources. Some of it might be readily available, some of it may not. You might be flying into a certain, for want of a better word, a dead zone where there isn't a lot of information in terms of weather or in terms of any kind of restrictions. So you kind of have to extrapolate different weather from different areas. You might have to go to big weather information in terms of pressure systems to kind of figure out what the weather might be in that particular area. So you're kind of going to do that kind of pre-flight work before you get to work, or before you get to where the helicopter is, or once you arrive there. You're going to find that information before you fly. Then you're going to look at, okay, well, what is my route? So I'm going to have to plan the route, right? Okay, so you have to plot your navigation route on your aeronautical charts. You're going to have to find out what your heading is. You're going to have to work out what your leg time is based upon the wind, the altitude you're flying at, and then based upon your leg times or your journey times, then you're going to have to find out what your fuel consumption will be. So you have to determine how much fuel you're going to have to carry, and then if you can't make that journey in one fuel load, then you're going to have to figure out, well, where am I going to have to fly to refuel to get onto the next destination as well. So this is all pre-flight planning in terms of weather, in terms of restrictions, then in terms of navigation, and then obviously in terms of fuel planning as well. Then obviously you've got to factor in, okay, well, what about if, let's just say, the weather is deteriorating or may deteriorate? Am I the kind of pilot who's qualified only to fly by visual flight rules, by visual references in VMC, which is visual meteorological conditions? In other words, let's say flying outside of cloud. Or are you a pilot that you can fly your IFR rated, your instrument rated, so you can fly instrument flight rules, so you can fly IMC in instrument meteorological conditions? So, for want of a better word, reduced visibilities, or in cloud, so you can fly solely by the reference to the instrument. So does that mean then you can plan to fly for like a hybrid, in terms you can fly VFR, a bit of IFR. You might have to make diversions into different airfields. So you kind of have to come up with contingencies in terms of what kind of flight is it going to be, what flight rules am I going to fly by, and do I necessarily have to fly straight line as the crow flies to a particular destination, or am I going to have to fly by radio navigation equipment, radio transmitters, that kind of thing? And there are different types of radio transmitters or navigation aids that we would say that a pilot can lock onto and fly from one navigation aid to another. So it might mean that you kind of zigzag your way to your final destination because of the nature of the flight in which you're doing. So all this is before you even approach the helicopter. So this is the pre-flight planning, okay? So then you got to think, right, okay, well, now I need to go to the helicopter and check whether this helicopter is fit for flight, safe for flight. So you can do a pre-flight inspection. Now, again, it really depends where you are and what kind of operation you're flying. You might have had other pilots flying the night before, so there's a regular check on the helicopter being done. And so they may have done an engineering check or a pilot check the night before. Engineers might have checked it as well. They might have done it in the morning before you arrive as well. So the helicopter is ready to go, and then you're just going to do a pre-flight inspection to satisfy your own interests, to say everything is working, everything, the obvious things, but you'll do your own inspection as well. So there are different names for this. It could be a pre-flight inspection, it could be a turnaround inspection, that kind of thing. So you'll check in one way or another, or other people will assist you in checking that the aircraft is fit for flight. So then obviously you're going to be looking at, do you need to put fuel on there, and are you carrying any passengers? You need to look at, well, if you're carrying passengers, what kind of passengers are they? Do they need to have pre-flight briefings? Who's going to take those pre-flight briefings? If you're just doing it by yourself as a pilot, then you're going to have to figure out, okay, when do I do these pre-flight briefings? What kind of security information am I going to give them? Also, what kind of security checks am I providing to those passengers? Am I checking their bags? What kind of equipment they're going to bring on? Are they bringing on firearms? That kind of thing. Are they allowed to bring firearms on board? Are they law enforcement, for example? All that kind of detail that you have to check. So there's lots of checks before you even get into the helicopter in terms of pre-flight information, weather, restrictions, routing, navigation, fuel consumption, fuel stops, type of flight that you're going to do, instrument flying or visual flying, and then destination, maybe handling destination, getting refueling, maybe getting transport on the other end for wherever you need to get to as well. Now, you could be flying to an airfield, or you could be flying to a helipad somewhere, or you could be flying to some private property. Do you need permission to land there? What kind of permission do you need? Do you need verbal permission? Do you just need to phone them up and notify them that you're going to be coming in for landing? Do you need to pay in advance? Do you need to get some kind of a written approval before landing there? So there are lots of different things, again, before you can land anywhere else. Depends on the country that you're flying as well. And then you get to the point of checking the helicopter. We've done that. Then we're looking at you flying alone, or are you carrying passengers? Okay, so have you been briefed? Have you given them security checks? Have they brought anything on board that they shouldn't be bringing? Would they potentially ever pose a security threat to you or to the aircraft? So these are things that you're going to be looking at. Or if you're working within an operation, they're going to be looking at as well. They're going to be factoring in there. Now, again, this really depends on what kind of flying that you are engaging in. Is this private flying, or is this commercial flying? And is this commercial flying that you're carrying passengers? Is this commercial flying that you're carrying equipment? Is this commercial flying that you're working for a corporation? So you're the corporate helicopter. You are the private helicopter of the corporation. So in terms of the commercial flying, it's commercial from the pilot's point of view, because you're earning an income from that. You're being paid to fly this helicopter. But in terms of a commercial operation, it isn't, because you're not earning money from the flight of that helicopter. In other words, there isn't a third party which is hiring that helicopter and hiring you as a pilot to take them somewhere or take some equipment. This corporate flying is all in-house, as it were. So you're just an employee of the corporation. So it's commercial flying, but not for hire or reward, as it were. So there's lots of things to consider before you even take off. So then, let's say you've done all your checks, you've got the passengers on board, you got all the luggage on board, and you go to start up the helicopter, and then you're going to do systems checks. So you might have already done this before. You might have started up the helicopter before passengers arrived, making sure everything's working. But then you're going to do that systems check, start everything up, and then you're going to get your air traffic clearance if you're at an airfield. If you're at a non-airfield, or an airfield that doesn't have any air traffic control there, then you're going to be speaking on the radio to somebody at some point, and then at some point you're going to fly that route, and however long it takes, you're going to fly to wherever you need to get to. You're going to deal with the different weather. You're going to deal with the different air traffic control instructions. You're going to deal with the different restrictions. Obviously, you're going to be dealing with flying the aircraft or flying the helicopter itself? Does it have an autopilot? Does it not have an autopilot? Are you prepared to deal with any emergency that you might have to deal with? Are you versed with all the emergencies, which you should be? Are you practiced? Are you trained in that? That's something that is often not talked about so much in terms of commercial aviation, or in fact, any aviation, in terms of how often are you as a pilot, how often are you training for emergencies? Now, for commercial pilots, they will be training for this every 6 months, or let's say you're gonna have to prove that you can deal with these emergencies. And different operations will allow training whilst on the line as well, whilst you're flying. So lots of pilots will do, especially if they carry a crew, they will do crew training on regular flights as well, or return flights when they just return into base. They do lots of scenario training, and that's invaluable. But if you're just a private pilot, or if you're just a pilot who flies by yourself, it could be hard just to imagine trying to perform any kind of recurrent training by yourself. So you might need to set aside some time to do some training, or you might just have to take it upon yourself to try and do some scenarios as you're flying along. Say, okay, if this happened, what would I do? If this happened, what would I do? So you have to be versed in those emergency scenarios. So you're flying along, you're heading towards your destination, you're trying to fly the helicopter straight and level, you're trying to follow radio signals, or you're trying to follow your line on the map, you're trying to keep airspeed, you're trying to keep altitude, you're trying to keep attitude, you're talking to your passengers, you're talking to air traffic control. So it can be a very busy time for a pilot. And this is just you're 10 minutes into the flight, half an hour into the flight. So let's just say that the flight is uneventful in terms of emergencies. Then if there was an emergency, obviously you have to deal with the emergency. You have to get the aircraft on the ground if need be, or take a detour or deviate and fly to the nearest airfield to get some remedial work done, get the aircraft fixed or whatever it is. That's when you're dealing with an emergency. Then obviously, if everything works out okay in terms of safely landing the aircraft on the ground, then you're going to have to deal with the passengers or the equipment and getting them to wherever they need to get to, but also dealing with the admin side of it in terms of the maintenance, the recovery, the dealing with different agencies. You might have to deal with the regulatory bodies as well, air traffic. So there's lots of things that you may have to do if you've had an emergency. If you haven't had an emergency, then you're just going to fly to your destination, make your landing safely, and then park the helicopter, shut down the helicopter, disembark your passengers and all the luggage, if that is the case. And then the passengers will go away, and then you, as the pilot, then you have to do the mop up, as it were, in terms of checking over the helicopter, maybe arranging for more fuel to be uploaded as well. Checking over the helicopter in terms of making sure that it's, as you leave the helicopter now, it is still fit for flight. Because what you're doing, you're checking to see in the meantime, from landing until the next flight that it may have, that there isn't a new problem that's developed with the helicopter that kind of materializes on visual inspection. Therefore, if it has, then you've got time now, whilst the aircraft is on the ground, to call a maintenance or engineers or mechanics in to come and try and fix it before the next flight. So that's what you're doing. It's really important to do a post-flight check, a post-flight walk around, a post-flight visual inspection of all the systems, of everything on the aircraft, on the helicopter, to make sure that it's still fit for flight. Or if it's not fit for flight, then you can arrange mechanics, engineers, whatever it is, to come and fix the aircraft. So then afterwards, it really depends what is required of you at the destination. It might mean that you have to check in with air traffic control. It might mean you have to check in with customs agents. It might mean you have to check in with your company or operation, whatever it is. And then obviously there's the associated paperwork and admin to do of that flight records, technical logs, maintenance logs, that kind of thing. You might have to, it depends on the company, the operation that you work for, let's say? Do they have any kind of electronic logging that you have to do in terms of on an onboard system, or in terms of like an iPad or something like that, or off a website? Do you have to do something there electronically in the form of admin, flight admin, that kind of thing? So there could be lots of post-flight duties that you have to do. Also, it really depends when your next proposed flight is. You might want to get a check of restrictions in the airspace, NOTAMs. You want to get update of weather. You might want to get an update of the operation in terms of support. You might want to get details of engineering, that kind of thing. Perhaps a quick check in terms of, is there anything in terms of restrictions, regulations that might have changed since you've been flying? You may want to check in with air traffic control to see what their services are going to be at the next time that you're going to fly. So there are lots of things that you could do in terms of post-flight. But let's just say all that's squared away. So you've got 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours, or it might even be 10 minutes to the next flight. What are you going to do then? Well, again, it really depends what operation you have and what other roles you might have within that operation. So if you're just a sole pilot flying privately, well, that means that, hey, the time is your own. You can do whatever you want. You're going to have lunch, you can go shopping, you can do whatever it is at your destination, right? If you're a commercial pilot flying for somebody, and you've taken people to a destination, you've taken goods and services, whatever it is, to a destination, you've unloaded. Now, it could be that you are left to your own devices. You could be that you're invited along to go and accompany the people to wherever their destination is as well. It could be that you're not invited. You have to stay with the helicopter. So then, again, you have to entertain yourself. You might have a book you want to read. You play on a game on your computer, on your tablet, on your phone, whatever it is. It really depends. Are there other helicopter pilots there as well? Sometimes there's a bit of a social gathering, there's a bit of a social meetup, with other pilots as well. You start having a little chat. So it really depends. It depends what you're tasked to do and how much time you've got to do it. Certain companies, as I say, commercial operation, they may require you to do other things as well at your destination whilst you're waiting for your next flight. I say, so there's again, that whole pre-flight process starts again whilst you're waiting for the next flight as well. Now, sometimes that can be quite a simple process, can be quite a quick process. Other times, especially if the weather is changing, then you're constantly trying to get updates of the weather, trying to see how the weather might affect your return flight. Do you have to notify the people, let's say, that you've flown up with, and say, look, you need to get back here a lot quicker, or we're losing light, the weather's going to deteriorate. It might be a case that you might have to say to them, if you can't come back here, we're not going to be able to take off, or I'm going to have to leave you here, I'm going to have to get the aircraft back. If you're stranded in a particular area, then you may have to look at security for the helicopter. You might have to look at security for yourself in terms of where you're going to spend the night, a hotel, that kind of thing. You have to arrange taxis. So there's lots of things to consider at that point, whether you can have another flight or whether you can't have another flight, and who you're going to have to speak to and deal with the commercial pressures or pressures of people that you're working with at the time. Now, it could be pressures from, let's say, your boss, or pressures from the company that you work for in terms of timelines, in terms of timetables, that kind of thing. It could be pressures from customers. They've gone in your helicopter to a destination. They're having a great time, but they're totally unaware of the restrictions and the pressures that the pilot is under in terms of weather, in terms of restrictions in the airspace, or problems with the aircraft. So you have to communicate that to them, and they may not like it. They may not like it at all. So, it's one of those things. What do you do? How do you deal with that situation? So there are lots of things that pilots do during the day, and it's not always physically flying. In fact, the physical flying bit is the easy part in many respects. It's everything else that's surrounded it. That's what demands a lot of time. That's what demands a lot of consideration in some cases. And again, it depends the type of operation. Is it a private flight? Is it a commercial flight? Is it a corporate flight in terms of not for hire type of commercial flying, or commercial pilot flying, I should say? Is it that kind of activity? Are you taking people? Are you taking goods? Are you just going to a destination to deliver an aircraft there? Or is it that you're going to have to wait around and then have a return flight back? So once you've ultimately landed for the day and that's your final flight, then again, it's post-flight admin, post-flight duties. And then it's a case of, well, is the aircraft secure for night? Has it been hangared? Do you have to put it into a hangar by yourself? Do you have to leave it outside? Do you have to tie down the blades, secure the aircraft itself in terms of locking it? Is it a secure location? All these things you're going to have to do. Once you've done your post-flight admin, then basically it's home time. Then you can go home and get ready for your next duty period. But that is the day in the life, or a working day in the life, of a helicopter pilot. And again, it really depends on the operation and how much support you have within that operation to do lots of these other roles. And it could be that you work for a huge company. Let's just say you work for in support of the oil and gas industry. A lot of these supporting checks and pre-flight elements that you have to do, and post-flight elements that you have to do. You might get support from co-pilot, let's say. You might get support from the operation itself to do that kind of stuff, and you just have to check whether it's been done and check that everything is okay, and you're satisfied that everything's okay. So that cuts down on your time, so it makes your operation a lot more efficient. But there are certain operations that you have to do everything by yourself. So it really depends. It depends on the type of operation, what kind of helicopters you're flying, where you're flying to, what kind of operation you're engaged in, and how much support you have on the day. But it always comes down to the pilot having to ensure that all the checks have been done, all the preparation has been done, and all the post-flight checks have been done, and all the flight elements are complied with, all the flight elements are dealt with. Is there an emergency? Isn't there an emergency? Then ultimately, it's securing the aircraft for the night and in readiness for the next flight duty, or for the next flight that the helicopter's going to have, and is any maintenance required or any servicing required on that helicopter. So anyway, so that is the day in the life of a helicopter pilot, or a working day in the life of a helicopter pilot. It could be that this is something that you're fully aware of, or it could be that you've never heard anything of the sort. I say it really depends on what kind of operation you're dealing with. And every helicopter operation is different, and every helicopter is different, even if they're the same model helicopter. In terms of commercial helicopters especially, but all helicopters, they can have a different fit and different elements and different equipment fitted as well. So one helicopter externally could look exactly the same, but inside, the roll fit is quite substantially different. So it can change from helicopter to helicopter, from operation to operation as well. But essentially, those elements, what a helicopter pilot will be doing, will be very similar from each operation. There will be some differences there, but essentially they'll be doing the same thing. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. If you like what I do here, just keep on listening, and hopefully there'll be another podcast, the Viewhead 4K podcast, coming very soon. Don't forget to check out all the videos on the Viewhead 4K YouTube channel as well. You can check out the podcast here on Spotify, on Apple, and also on YouTube, Viewhead 4K channel, and also go to the website revelatoralf.com for all the links to all the media channels there as well. So with that, catch you again on another podcast coming very soon. Bye now.